Let me ask you a question. Would you like to save money on your kids' college education? I know I would. I've got 4 of them. So that's going to be a big, hefty price I'm going to have to pay to send all 4 of them to college. With a little bit of planning and research, you yourself can save a significant amount of money on your kids' education. If you don't have kids, the information I'm going to provide can still be used by you. Just a little bit of creativity and imagination, and you can see where I'm going with this. Now, there are a lot of different ways you can save money on school. Specifically, I'm going to talk about one of them mainly, tuition. And in those 2, I'm going to cover areas of residency as well as tapping into your local community college. Now, to demonstrate my points, I'm going to utilize tuition costs estimated by the University of Washington, Oregon State University, Pierce Community College, Pierce College, and Portland Community College, all schools in the Pacific Northwest. All of their information can be found on their various websites, easily Googleable, and look at typically under their admission requirements and then tuition links. The first thing I'm going to talk about is taking advantage of residency requirements. Now, typically, universities charge significantly different fees or tuition costs for residents versus non-residents, meaning people that live in the state versus the people that are coming from out of state to attend school. And this is where you can potentially save some money. Now, if the degree plan allows for it and it's available within your home state, then you can potentially save quite a bit of money. Now, here's the example. University of Washington, for a term, charges $3,900 for tuition costs for residents versus non-residents, $9,800. That's a big chunk of change. A lot of money potentially could be saved there. Oregon State University costs are pretty similar. $4,000 for residents versus $11,000 for non-residents. Now, you multiply these numbers over the course of a 4-year degree, you're going to save quite a bit of money. Now, tuition costs vary from one university to another, but I think you're going to find the variance percentage is going to be roughly the same. So just do a little bit of research and come up with your own numbers for universities in your area. Now, another way to save money is by tapping into your local community college. There are a lot of advocates, pros and cons to this, but I'm just going to talk about the tuition that's relevant to this. Now, community colleges don't typically offer for your 4-year degree, so what I'm looking at is in reference to knocking out those core requirements, the first 2 years of college typically. Comparing tuition costs between community college and university, using those same colleges I mentioned before, and the universities. Pierce College, which is relatively close to University of Washington, charges $1,400 per term for tuition versus the University of Washington, $3,900. Portland Community College, relatively close to Oregon State University, charges the same amount, $1,400 per term, versus Oregon State University's $4,000. And that's quite a big difference, and some potentially significant savings. Now, multiply that even more if you're going to do that community college versus a university out of state. And then the cost savings just multiply from there if you take this particular course. So that's another massive amount of potential savings there. Now, there are a lot of other ways besides these 2 I've talked about in reference to saving money on your kids' college education. But grants and scholarships aren't going to cover all of it. So you got to be creative. With a little bit of planning and some research, all of that can pay off big dividends in the end.